Hello, my name is Peg Grafwallner. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm here today to talk about F.R.A.M.E. Focus, reach, achieve, model, and encourage. How do you frame the first 10 minutes of your class? You know, we spend a lot of time as educators lesson planning. We want to make sure that we're grabbing the right resources for our students, that we're scaffolding our lesson. We want our students to be engaged and motivated. But do we really spend time planning those first 10 minutes, which are as critical? A lot of times we think it's just going to happen. They'll walk in, we'll say hello, and we'll get moving. That's really not how it works. I'll tell you how I came about F.R.A.M.E. As an instructional coach, I work with teachers all day long. I'm helping them create, develop, implement, and assess their lessons. I also work with student teachers. In this particular case, I was observing a student teacher, brand new to the craft, and I noticed that she came into class and just started class. There was really no opportunity to focus on the lesson that she had planned. There was no opportunity to really reach out to her students, to tell them what they could achieve in that block, to show them how to model, to encourage them that they would be successful. She just started class. And that's when it really hit me. That's when I thought, you know, we need to step back and really plan for those first 10 minutes as hard as we plan for our own lessons. So that's what F.R.A.M.E. is all about. So I have some notes off to the side because I don't want to miss anything. And I'm really hoping that you like this video, that you please feel free to email me. I'm at peggrafwallner@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to explain, and if you want me to, demonstrate how to use F.R.A.M.E. in your particular classroom. So let's start first of all with F, the F.R.A.M.E., the F in F.R.A.M.E. As you know, it is so important to create a really worthwhile learning target and a really easy to understand, I don't want to say simplistic, but easy to understand success criteria where students feel empowered and confident at the end of that lesson. So the very first thing you want to do, and remember, this should take about 10 minutes or so. So you don't want to eat up too much class time because, of course, I understand you want to get to the lesson. But this is important too. So for the first minute or two, I want you to write the learning intention and success criteria on the whiteboard, on the smart board, and make sure that's all set to go prior to students coming in your classroom. Do not do it as they come in, or don't do it the first minute or two of class. Do this before, because you want them to walk in, see that learning intention, see that success criteria in kid-friendly language. You want them to walk in and know, hey, this is what we're doing today. I may not understand it completely right now, but I know that we have a plan. Remember, those 10 minutes of class can create or deflate. That learning intention and success criteria can create or deflate. In other words, don't write it in teacherese or jargon. Write it in kid-friendly language so it makes complete sense to them, or at least the language does, right? We want to make sure they understand that. All right, now that should take a minute or two. All right, as students are walking into your classroom, now we're going to reach out. And how do we do that? A whole bunch of different ways. You probably have a specific way you reach out to certain students in your class. Well, now I'm asking you to reach out to every student. Stand outside that hallway. Greet them with a handshake. You know, I've seen some teachers who have a special handshake for each individual student. You may not have that kind of time in the morning, perhaps, but greet every single student. Look every single student in the eye. You know, as educators, we have a million things going on, and it's very easy for us to listen to a student, but not make that eye contact. You know, we might be doing something else, taking attendance. Stop. Make the eye contact, look at that student, and make sure that he or she knows you are specifically looking at him or her. You really want to take that time. That's how we reach out to everyone. When I had my own classroom, I often wrote individual notes to students and put them in their mailbox. Just, you know, great job on that test, or you did a wonderful job at our multicultural fair, or I saw that you did a great job, maybe helping a fellow student, whatever it may be, reach out. And that should only take you maybe 1 or 2 minutes of class, of time. And remember, this can be in the hallway, this can be as the bell is ringing, but you want to make sure you reach out to every student. Now, after reach, we have achieve. And what does that look like? Well, here's the deal. We want to make sure that we are giving students the empowerment and the confidence to know that they will achieve no matter what. So let me give you a little personal story here. I have 2 children, proud of both of them. My son was your 4.0 in high school. I mean, he was a terrific student all through school. As a matter of fact, truthfully, he didn't really have to open books. He was just one of those kinds of kids. And you know which one I'm talking about. Graduated with a 4.0, went on to college, very successful, went on to get his MBA. He's a mechanical engineer. Life is great. Okay, now I have my daughter. And my Annie is autistic and cognitively impaired. Here's the deal, though. They both learn in their own specific way. So when we're talking about achieve, I assume as a parent and an educator myself that that teacher is not only providing a lesson where my son will achieve, but is also providing a lesson where my daughter will achieve. So remember, achieve should take about 2-3 minutes or so. And here's the deal. So you walk into class, you've greeted every student, right? He or she, the students now have seen the learning intentions and success criteria up in front. And this is where you read it, and now you're going to talk about it. So often we'll read the LI and SC, we walk away and we get into the lesson. I don't want you to do that. I want you to explain how they're going to achieve in that learning intention and that success criteria. I want you to go ahead now and read that LI and explain the language. Explain what that means to them. And I want you to explain it in a way where my son understands it, my daughter, same class, but nonetheless, we want all our students to walk away feeling empowered. Now, in this particular case, you could do a couple things. You could certainly, and by the way, I want to back up and let you know that achieve and model kind of blur into each other, okay? So at this point, let's say you have a document camera. You can certainly go ahead and whatever outcome you want them to have, slide it on the under the document camera and show them. So let me give you an example. My background is English. So today's learning intention might be that the students will write a thesis statement. The success criteria is that students will know they're successful when their thesis statement is peer edited by a peer and they are able to conference with the teacher. So in other words, we're taking something very small. If I would say that today's learning intention is to write an essay, that's too broad, that's too big, it's too much. Students would look at that and think, oh my gosh, how am I going to write a full-blown essay in a 45-minute period, a 15-minute period, even a block period? Too much. However, a thesis statement, I could do that. I could write a thesis statement in the length of time I have today. And at this point, I might take a thesis statement, one that's been written by a student that I have already said is correct. I might put that thesis statement under the document camera during my achieve and model portion of my frame and say, this is what we're creating today. This is what it will look like. That way students are sitting there saying, okay, I can do this. I understand what I'm doing. I have enough time to do it, as opposed to, wait a minute, a whole essay, there's no way. It's that kind of thing that lessens the anxiety and gives students the opportunity to say, you know what? I can do this. I'm feeling positive about what I can achieve today. And now seeing that model, I know I can do it. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Peg, I teach in a block, and you know, an hour and a half for a thesis statement. Okay, well, then make it a thesis paragraph. Make it a body paragraph. My point is, don't make it so big that they can't achieve it. And don't make it so minor either, right? Or so small where you have all this downtime and your kids are wandering aimlessly. We don't want that either. But you certainly want them to know that they can achieve this. And with the model you've shown them, it is possible. Okay? So I'm going to give you a little time to think all that through. So think of, you know, your discipline. Think of what you teach. So you're a science teacher. We want to teach acids and bases today. How might that look in F.R.A.M.E? How might the achieve portion look? Maybe the model might be where, again, you put on the whiteboard a compare or a contrast chart of acids and bases and say to them, at the end of our period today or at the end of our lesson, this is what you will achieve. You will have the opportunity to do this. So again, it's giving them that empowerment and confidence. Think of humanities. You teach citizenship. How might that look? How does achieve and model look in that particular discipline? In that, what do you want them to achieve, and how can you model it so again they know they have a shot, right? We never want our students to feel frustrated, and yet son of a gun, sometimes that happens. We don't want that. Finally, the last part of F.R.A.M.E is encourage. What does encourage look like? Now, we've had a lot of conversation, you know that, about grit. We've had a lot of language from the growth mindset. But here's the deal. We don't want to just praise students or encourage students for the sake of praise and encouragement. We want them to know that while the work may be difficult, we know they will be successful. So let's go back to my example, and let's go back to my thesis statement. So my learning intention and success criteria is by the end of this block, students will write a thesis statement. I know they're successful when they have an accurate thesis statement as determined by the teacher, okay? Then I've reached out to everyone. I've either shook hands or I've had that personal conversation, even if it's just 15 seconds per student, right? I've come in, I've read the learning intention to them, I've read the success criteria, I've explained that we're working on the thesis statement. This is something brand new, but we're going to take time today to make sure they really feel good about it. They're comfortable with it. They feel confident. I'm going to model what that looks like. Again, maybe I have examples on the smartboard. I'm going to briefly, minute or two, go through some of those models just so they see they can achieve this. And then finally, I'm going to encourage. And encourage might look like this. I might say something to my students that first, we as a group will write a thesis statement. Then I might give my students a brief piece of text, and based on this text, put them in small groups of maybe 3, and have that group of 3 write a thesis statement based on that text. Then I might put students in pairs, give them another brief reading, and have them write a thesis statement based on that brief reading. And then finally, have the student individually write a thesis statement based on the novel we have been reading. Then, as they're working on that, I would be going around to each student individually, reaching out again, each student individually, and reading his or her thesis statement. And think again of how the student feels. Wow, I'm going to get a lot of practice. That makes me feel good. Mrs. Grafwellner isn't going to let me leave until she's looked at my thesis statement, giving me some feedback as fast as I can, because I want to reach every student in that block, right? That student is not going to leave without having a really strong idea of a thesis statement, or at least mastering a thesis statement. So my point to that particular opportunity is I am meeting with each student, like I said, reaching out again, modeling again to each student, and encouraging them that yes, you are going to be successful. That's F.R.A.M.E. So the next time you're sitting there and you're working on your lesson plan, right? And you're putting it all together and creating and developing and implementing, thinking about assessment, please think about the first 10 minutes of class. Please think about how you can focus, reach, achieve, model, and encourage your students in such a way that they feel not only successful, but empowered, engaged, energetic, and enthusiastic for what comes next. Thank you so much. Once again, I'm Peg Grafwellner for F.R.A.M.E.